Professor Nikolai Petrovsky is Australia's leading authority on vaccines. He is renowned globally for his work, developing vaccines for anthrax post 9/11 and the swine flu in 2009. He has serious cred, and he's one person we should really listen to, especially when he expresses concern over vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna, which, he says, are experimental gene therapy treatments. And yes, he does have some skin in the game, but that shouldn't preclude Petrovsky from expressing concerns about what he knows better than most and why Australians really need to listen. There should be an alternative to the Pfizer and mRNA vaccines, because if the government's objective is to safeguard the health of Australians, then it must be transparent. It should provide Australians with the choice to choose the type of vaccine that they should have access to. And the right to choose shouldn't even be up for debate, but somehow it is. And yet, there's still no choice. It's mRNA vaccines only. Australians should have the right to choose whether they want a vaccine like Petrovsky's Covax or the mRNA gene therapy vaccine like Pfizer. But Australians don't have a choice. It's a choice the federal government refuses to offer, and we need to ask why. Wedding Australians to the mRNA form of vaccine only carries with it a business model that stinks. It's a model that raises more questions than it answers, especially when other countries offer 4 or 5 alternatives, and for good reason. Pharmaceutical companies should not be granted a monopoly on the health of Australians, but Pfizer has. It's a dangerous, and for all the wrong reasons. Last week, Petrovsky appeared here on The Informer discussing the federal government's refusal to even consider his vaccine and how it has forced him to turn to crowdfunding to raise the $350,000 required to bring Covax back to Australia just to submit it for TGA approval. Australians have a right to know why a world-leading expert like Professor Petrovsky is being shunned. They also have a right to know why an Australian-developed vaccine is not being supported by the federal government, and why the federal government not only refuses to engage with Professor Petrovsky, but is wedded to Pfizer and mRNA gene therapy technology. The Informer also recently interviewed Craig Kelly. And no matter how people choose to characterise Kelly, he is a politician who obviously wears his heart on his sleeve. Kelly is passionate. Kelly is committed to challenging questionable narratives. And during the interview, Kelly indicated the need for a federal ICAC and why he has tabled one in a bill in the Parliament. Kelly also mirrored Petrovsky's thoughts. Petrovsky too, along with many other prominent Australians, are calling for a federal ICAC, as well as a Royal Commission. The Informer has throughout the past several weeks editorialised about the level of corruption running rampant throughout Australian politics. And it seems, given what has taken place and the behaviour of the federal government, the need for a federal ICAC is more critical than ever. There are questions that must be answered about the relationships established, what those relationships look like, who the players involved are, whether any deals have been done, and what those deals are. Who's actually benefiting, and have people benefited in what capacity? The pressure Pfizer has exerted on the feds is astounding. Why a sovereign nation like Australia has allowed Pfizer to dictate its terms for the agreements, and what those terms actually are. Because what Australians now have is a government that appears to have sold them out. And for what? There are 4 parties that must answer questions which Australians are entitled to know. Those parties, clearly, are the Prime Minister's office, Greg Hunt's office, the TGA's leadership, and Pfizer themselves. Australians are entitled to know how deeply intertwined all are with each other. And if they aren't, who is and who isn't, and the extent of each of those connections. The capacity of those relationships, we need to know what they look like. A federal ICAC is vital because it not only is the stench of corruption becoming a reality, but it goes a long way to explaining why Professor Petrovsky is being shunned. If deals have been done or people have been compromised and directives issued, then the federal government and its cartel have sold Australians out for purposes people can only surmise.